Tranquility du Jour, October 22nd, 2018. Hello there, this is Kimberly Wilson of Tranquility du Jour. Delighted to be here with you today for the 432nd edition of this podcast, launched in 2005. And this is a podcast all about artists, activists, authors doing wonderful things in the world. And so today I'm going to be talking about writing. Writing is the theme for this month's Year of Tranquility module. And on Saturday, I'm hosting a writing salon in DC in my therapy office space. And so the topic's been pretty heavy on my mind, particularly since I've been working on a project for years now that I hope to bring to fruition. And then also because we just pulled together a snail mail exchange for those in Year of Tranquility. And this really great article about snail mail came out in the New York Times. So I thought, let me just chat about writing for this week's edition of Tranquility du Jour. And then we'll return to some wonderful interviews around the corner, including interviews with some ladies who are in the positive psychology program with me, the 6-month program that I finished in March. And we're going to be sharing a lot of our takeaways from that, and also some writers who have finished some really wonderful books that have just come out, interviewing them and more. So there's lots of fun to be had until the end of the year with Tranquility du Jour. So as always, I really appreciate you being here. And if you have a moment to pen a review on iTunes, always grateful for that. And also, if you have a moment to pen a review of any of my 5 books on Goodreads or Amazon, would so appreciate that also. Just wanted to mention before I dive in that, again, Year of Tranquility, it is happening ongoing, and you can drop in. You can drop in now if you'd like to get the writing module. You can drop in next month is entrepreneurship, which is going to be all about like time management, productivity, being the boss lady of your own freaking life, right? So you do not have to have a team or be an entrepreneur. It's more about being an entrepreneur of your life, right? So not so much of a business per se. And then December is all about meaning. So you can find more about this at kimberlywilson.com/YOT. Also this Saturday, as I mentioned, I'm hosting a 2.5-hour workshop, writing salon, and it's going to be diving into the writing practice, process, doing a little writing together, and then also sharing some writing tools. The next thing I'll be doing is December 31st, which is a 3-hour workshop at Tranquil Space/Yoga Works in DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C. And that's all about yoga, mindfulness, and setting dreams for 2019, which I can't believe is already kind of around the corner. And then in January, I'll launch my next Tranquility Salon, which is a 4-week series focused on self-care, mindfulness, creativity, and dreams/goals. So if you're interested in that, the application is now available, and you can find that on the homepage of kimberlywilson.com. Now, if you are interested in escaping to the tropics in chilly February, there are still spots available for Costa Rica, and that's over President's Day weekend, and then also Tuscany in July. We have a few spots left for that. So if you have any questions about these retreats, please don't hesitate to reach out. Kind of the cool thing about the retreats is that it allows you to dive a little deeper into a lot of the concepts that I share, and they're just some beautiful, beautiful settings with beautiful, beautiful people. Somehow, the people who show up to these retreats are always like the ones who are meant to be there. It's really a delightful experience. Also, a big thank you to everyone who tuned in on Saturday for our 3-hour virtual retreat focused on softening into fall. It is really a delight to be with you and to have the 8 ladies who were here in my living room joining us live. That was really special. And, it's just a wonderful way to think about, okay, how can I soften into this season? What do I want this season to look and feel like? Because really we're rounding the corner on 2018. If you're interested in the retreat, it's now available for replay and download, and you can find that again on the homepage also. And it comes with a coupon for tranquility.com. So again, if you're interested, check that out. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. So let's chat for a moment about writing. So I wanted to start with a quote from one of my favorite books called The Art of Slow Writing, Reflections on Time, Craft, and Creativity. And she says slow writing is a meditative act, slowing down to understand our relationship to our writing, slowing down to determine our authentic subjects, slowing down to write complex works, slowing down to study our literary antecedents. And this is, again, a really, really great book. But whenever I think about writing, sometimes it's not even just fiction or creative nonfiction. There are so many different ways to write and to express ourselves. So I wanted to share a few and then also to read to you a little bit about the beauty of snail mail, again, as came out in the New York Times. And this just came out October 8th. So whenever we think about writing, there are many different ways to express ourselves in the written word. So we can do gratitude. We can do letters of gratitude. We can do gratitude lists. You've probably heard a lot about how wonderful, keeping track of all we have to be grateful for can be to actually enhance our well-being. Of course, there's letters, snail mail, beautiful, beautiful snail mail. There's journal writing, which of course is incredibly powerful. I'm currently studying journal therapy, and there's so much to learn with this practice of writing. It's so, so powerful, so profound. Essays, poetry, memoir, even a micro-memoir, which we're going to be talking about this week in Year of Tranquility, vignettes, speeches, blogging, free writing, so just sitting down and free association, journalism. There's travel writing. There's recipe writing. There's, of course, emails, text, social media. There's fiction. There's how-to. There are book reviews. There are fables, which are short stories with morals, opinions, plays, resumes, cover letters, and songs. And I'm sure many, many more practices. So thinking about, with regard to writing, how would you like to get more writing into your life? And maybe you'd like to do some list making. So I find list making to be so much fun. And recently in Year of Tranquility, I shared a huge list of possibilities for list making. I'm going to share a few with you. So I mentioned earlier gratitude. What about a worry list? Sometimes we have those things that are just running like a hamster wheel over and over and over in our mind. What would it be like to get those worries down? What am I worrying about right now? What do I want to do? What are my holiday menus? List making, right? Current projects, meeting notes, exercise log, meal planning, videos to shoot, blog posts to write, reading log, books to buy, books to read, movies to watch, restaurants to try, day trip ideas, self-care list, relationship wish list, career wish list, Q4 list. So this is thinking about, okay, for this last quarter of 2018, what's on your list? What is it you want to bring forth? A to-be list, right? So we're usually pretty good at to-do lists. What about a to-be list? What would go on your to-be list? All right. And then with regard to journaling, journaling is such a powerful tool. And so Anais Nin wrote, "We write to taste life twice, in the moment and in retrospect." So one of the writing practices that I mentioned, of course, is letter writing. So as I mentioned, the New York Times just came out with a piece. We could all use a little snail mail right now. What the world needs now? Question? Handwritten cards and letters. So agree. All right, so why? So it says writing by hand feels good. And what's really interesting, the data shows when we write by hand, we do retain the information better. And it may even boost our creativity, the article says. Handwritten notes spread love. I got the sweetest card that had sparkly pigs with pumpkins on it from a longtime friend. And it said the only thing missing here is Pugs. And it was so sweet. And, it just brightened my day. Came in an orange envelope with her handwriting on it. They truly do spread love. Snail mail is, slow and unique. You don't have to be a writer or an artist to send meaningful notes. And getting started is easier than you think. All right, so what do you need, right, to get going and started with regard to snail mail? So I'll mention a little bit of what I shared in last week's Year of Tranquility piece that went out to the subscribers. And basically what I mentioned that I think is so kind of fun about letter writing and about personalizing and what it is that you need. So of course you need something to write on, you need a pen, you need a stamp, you need an address label, or of course you can write that. You can even do a wax seal and something to stick inside. So I have here snail mail as a form of slow writing where tender care is poured into the experience. From the stationery to the envelope to the stamp. It's like, right here, it's like choosing my stamp design at USPS is a major life decision. I hold up the line way too long making this choice. To the way it's sealed with washi tape or wax seal, to what's tucked inside, maybe an article, a tea bag, or an image, to the way your name and address are written, to the message inside the pen you used. It's a lot of personalization. And when I say to the way your name and address are written, that's like where you can practice hand lettering or calligraphy. Of course, the same goes for a postcard. So you can think of the way you can touch with many, many different senses. You can tuck a tea bag inside, which is taste. Use Luxe Paper Touch, write with a pink pen, sight, and spritz with lavender spray, smell. Plus, of course, you can practice, as I mentioned, your hand lettering, calligraphy, or hand writing. So snail mail, a wonderful, beautiful form of writing that I think is so overlooked these days and yet so, so important. There's also, you may be like, well, why would I write? So there are so many benefits to writing. And you may know a bit about this if you've studied any of the work of James Pennebaker. So he's done a lot of work around the importance of expressive writing and how helpful it is to decreasing pain, to increasing self-esteem, all sorts of really, really powerful things. So just a few of the benefits. Of course, it helps to clear the mind. I find it to be incredibly powerful, particularly when I have my mind kind of running on repeat. Helps recover memories, stockpile ideas, puts things in perspective. One thing that's interesting in journal therapy, it talks about writing out a situation, maybe a struggle that you're having with another person, and write it from their point of view. It's like, super helpful. Another thing is to switch first person, I, to third person, and to notice, like say you're writing about, your morning. Shift it to third person, and oftentimes we can see a much bigger picture that we can in first person. So I find that to be really a powerful piece. So writing gives form to ideas, gets them out of the head, freeing up bandwidth, and preventing you from crashing your browser like a late night downward spiral on Wikipedia. I read that online and I loved that. I think that's so, so important. And I just wanted to share, too, a few writing prompts maybe to help get you started in case you're interested in this practice and diving deeper. Of course, would love to host you for Writing Salon or host you for the Year of Tranquility module. And also, there's so many wonderful resources out there on writing. And I've done a lot of podcast interviews on writing that you may also find helpful. And I'll put those over in the show notes, links to those. So a few things to get you started. This one's always a favorite. Is tell the story of a scar. Number 2, what is one thing you could do today that your future self would thank you for? And that actually came out of a poetry class that I took with David White. He said, what is one thing that you could do today that your future self would thank you for? I love that. What truth have you been refusing to admit to yourself, and how could you face it? I really wish others knew this about me, ... What 3 things could you give up that would give you more time, energy, and peace? And write a letter to someone who is no longer in your life. So just a few prompts to get you started. And if you're interested, you could also Google, I'll put a link in the show notes. There's 650 prompts that the New York Times put out a couple years ago that are really great also to do a bit of writing around and exploring that range in so many different topics. So I wanted to share too, this piece by Dani Shapiro in her book, Still Writing, The Perils and Pleasures of a Creative Life. She says, build a corner. That is what people who are good at puzzles do. They ignore the heap of colors and shapes and simply look for straight edges. They focus on piecing together one tiny corner. Every book, story, and essay begins with a single word, then a sentence than a paragraph. These words, sentences, paragraphs may well end up not being the actual beginning. You can't know that now. Straining to know the whole of the story before you set out is a bit like imagining great-grandchildren on a first date, but you can start with the smallest detail. So I encourage you to pick up your pen this week, do a little bit of writing, a little bit of reflecting, maybe a little bit of list making, maybe even put a stamp on something and drop it in the mail to make someone else's day. So I have in the show notes, of course, ways you can find me. I think everyone knows that by Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. While we were doing our 40-hour round trip drive to Oklahoma last week, as I was driving, as I was actually in the passenger, Tim was doing all the driving, and I was going through Pinterest and just doing a lot of penning and updating. So I did do some fun new additions to Pinterest, and particularly around the City of Light, because I'm going to be heading there next month. I found a $450 ticket online and thought I just couldn't resist. I just needed to go. And really my goal, what to do there is to just sit in cafes and write. I just want to write. I feel like there's so much that needs to come out of me that has been kind of cooped up. And I think it's time to just see what might unfold. So that is my goal with that. And also, I want to say a big thank you. So many of you have been involved in the past 6 weeks of whirlwind, from the Tranquility Fall Trunk Show. Thank you so much for everyone who came and supported that, to the Pugs and Pints event where we raised $871 and donated that to Mid-Atlantic Pug Rescue for a recent rescue they had done, to the virtual retreat that I just did, to launching the 7-day detox. It's just been a whirlwind, really, of events and, driving to and from Oklahoma. I'll have a video up soon on YouTube that gives a little insight into our experience there. It was basically movies, fires, vegan cake, and walks to the mailbox, which was about 15 minutes down the road. So just a very sweet experience. But as you can tell, since I got back, I've caught a cold, and I'm slowly kind of acclimating back to everyday life, it's lovely to be back in DC, yet it's always a delight to be able to kind of get out and escape and do a little reflection in the interim. So I want to say a big thank you for tuning in, for being part of Tranquility du Jour, and for those of you too who were able to join again for the Softening into Fall virtual retreat. It was an honor to be with you. And if you are interested at all in my 5 books, there's a link in the show notes, Tranquility-filled e-courses, and also to read about my passion for animals. Why pigs and pugs? I'm obsessed. So I wish you a really great week ahead, and I hope that this podcast has just done a little nudge or a little bit of inspiration to pick up your pen, send a love note, say hello to yourself, make some lists, and really just kind of open up to whatever may be bubbling up within. We have 2 months left in 2018. How would you like it to look and feel? Thanks for being here. Namaste.